How's it going, everybody? My name's Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. So I got word of something that just popped up on Steam, and I think other digital platforms as well, and I wanted to take a look at it for you guys. So we're taking a look at Cinemaware Anthology 1986 to 1991. So what the heck is Cinemaware? Well, if you're an old school Amiga gamer, you are probably very, very familiar with this name. They were a developer that made some of the most widely regarded and revered titles on the Amiga, as you can see in the bottom left right there. They were kind of famous for making a lot of one-offs. There's not a lot of sequels in their catalog, which is very interesting. And they were all games that were kind of not really simulators and not really adventure games. They were kind of weird hybrids. A lot of adventure games with a lot of different styles and mechanics that were based around certain themes, whether that be World War II flying, weird, like, sort of supernatural alien stuff in the desert, historical Japanese storytelling, mobsterism, stuff in Nottingham, all kinds of neat stuff. And they did a bunch of pseudo-simulation sports games here, as you can see as well. They were very, very highly regarded games on the Amiga, and they also ported a lot of this stuff to PC via DOS as well, though not nearly as good versions of it. The company didn't last super long. They lasted a few years, put out a lot of stuff that was well regarded, but apparently due to bad management, they went bankrupt in the 90s. And then they were resurrected in the early 2000s by somebody who bought them, re-released some of their old stuff, and then also did a sort of reimagining of one of their more popular games, which was Defender of the Crown for the PS2 and the Xbox, which didn't sell. And then later they were bought by like a casual games company and turned into a publishing label, and that didn't last very long. And then, I don't know, now their ownership changed again, and now we've got this. So anyway, that's the history for that. So what this is another emulation package. I talked about Midway Arcade Origins recently. This is basically the same idea. It's most of their most highly regarded games released, interestingly enough, in both Amiga and PC formats. It's sort of both versions of these, though the PC catalog is not as extensive. I do believe that's because some of these games never made it to PC originally. A couple of their most highly regarded titles, like a Three Stooges game that was very well beloved, are not here, likely for copyright reasons or licensing issues. And yeah, I'm here mostly to talk about the collection. I'm going to show a couple of things of these games, but I'm not talking about any of the games specifically, because this collection is $10. Some of these games you can buy individual versions of on Good Old Games as well. But I wanted to talk about this because, well, there's two problems with this. One, this collection's a little rough in spots, to put it mildly, and, well, Cinemaware games haven't aged very well. Most of them play pretty horrible by modern standards, and I dare say this is a collection that is probably for hardcore enthusiasts and retro nuts only. So, alright, so what do we got here? Well, when you run it, you get this menu, which is nicely presented, looks kind of cool. There's no sound or anything. Don't worry, I didn't accidentally mute this or nothing. There's no sound here at all. You can go in here and see, set your controls for the games. So most of them are keyboard driven or mouse driven. You can change your mouse speed, which I'm not sure if that affects the games itself. Some of them it didn't seem to for me. In addition to that, this game boasts partial controller support. It is very, very inconsistent. Not all games need it, so there's that. And also, I just find it doesn't work super well in a lot of cases. Some games it just responds really weird. A couple of games I had it not work at all, or it was very inconsistent. But the option's there, which is kind of cool. Also, we're going to get to it, but the DOS versions of these are horrible. And, I mean, it's nice they threw them in, but they're not the versions you want to play anyway. So, but we'll get to that. So I'm going to show you a couple of the major games here. And you can see they're designated here when you go over which games are joystick controlled, mouse controlled, or keyboard controlled, or whatever. Right. So, Defender of the Crown, I would argue, is probably Cinemaware's most highly regarded game, and this is really interesting. started the game off there, and it didn't actually start it. It resumed from where I left off, which I didn't even know this could do. So I guess that's what this restart thing means here, is if you select that and then select a game, it reboots it. If you don't, I guess it will actually save state it. That's kind of nice. I like that, but that's the first time that's ever happened. I've been screwing around with this collection for about an hour, and it's never save stated any game before. I didn't even know this was possible. So I'll give them kudos for that. Having save states is nice, and I guess if we do this, it will restart it. Yep, there it is. So, first thing a lot of people are going to ask is, how's the emulation quality? On the Amiga end, it's not bad. The problem is that they haven't really done much to accelerate anything such as load times. Now, I haven't played these on a proper Amiga in quite some time. The Amiga load times were notoriously long. This may be sped up, but there are still a number of situations where the game is loading, and because you don't have a disk drive clicking, you don't know it, and it will just appear to be frozen. And you just have to sort of sit and wait and let it sort of finish up. This game's pretty good because when it's loading, you see you get the little Z symbol there, or a little Z symbol that the Amiga had to indicate that it was busy. But like here, for example, it was loading there, and you couldn't really tell, and that's pretty light. And you see it's doing little things where it's sort of hanging like that. The Amiga didn't do that, so that's not really stupendous. But the load times are pretty reasonable. They're you know, you're in a lot of cases you're going to be like, what the hell? But if you're an old school Amiga player, you're used to much worse, so you probably won't mind that too much. So you see here, Defender of the Crown is kind of a series of mini games where you're trying to take over places and things like that. You'll also see that the colors kind of go when it's switching screens like that. That's an emulation problem too. This is the really horrible Melee game. As I said, these games have not aged well at all. If you're familiar with how they played back in the day, you're probably going to be like, hey, alright, this is, you know, I can figure this out, I can remember this, but yeah, these are rough now, man. By modern day standards, these games play absolutely abysmally, like worse than the worst kind of shovelware you can think of. So you just want to be cognizant of that. Know what you're getting into when you're getting into this collection. These were revered games, but they were revered games from a very different time. So anyway, so there we go. So when you want to return to the menu from the Amiga games anyway, you just hit F12. Oh yeah, but another thing, F12 by default in Steam is the screenshot key. So unless you want to change that, every time you return to the menu, it's going to take a screenshot, and this menu doesn't work properly with Steam screenshots, so the screenshots are just black. Good job, guys. That's really excellent there. So, all right, so we've got some other options here. It Came from the Desert are some of the most widely regarded games, especially because of the production values they had. Huh, this safe stated as well. It never did that before. So let's restart this. This is really famous because it had an intro with voice in it and really fancy animations.
Unchanged for millions of years, yet witness to a biblical prophecy come true that one day the meek shall inherit the earth.
Like this looks quaint by modern standards, but believe me, in the day this was mind-blowing. Back in like 1990, this was just this would blow your minds. So, and as you can see, we also have some pretty old interface styles back then. You know, this starts off looking pretty rough. And as you can see, it's doing a long load here, and it's just sitting. It's working. I swear to God, it's working. There it is. So, little things like that you can see are a little bit rough. So here's also an interesting game. This is a game, this is King of Chicago, which is a game based around basically being a mobster and sort of trying to take over the city and stuff. It's pretty cool, actually. And the Amiga versions, you know, speaking of as 16-bit-ish kind of games, the Amiga versions still hold up pretty well production value-wise. from the era. These games were absolutely ripping state-of-the-art for their time, compared to a lot of what you could get on PC and things like that. And they still show that. If you're familiar with the context, they definitely show that. What you will notice is some things here, like I'm stuck at this title screen and I'm like hitting buttons trying to move it forward. I don't know if this is because it's loading here or what, but basically, like I'm hitting escape, spacebar, enter, clicking the mouse buttons, hitting all the controller buttons, and it's just kind of not moving. A lot of this stuff you've kind of got to figure out on your own. The game, it really provides no context to it. That's why I say this collection is really only suited to people. Here we go. Now it's started. This collection is really only suited to people who have fond memories of this from back in the day and remember it. Because if you don't, you're gonna think this is janky as hell. And truth be told, it is. They put no effort into this other than putting an emulation wrapper around it. Make no mistake, this is a collection that came out for some easy money, in my humble opinion. So, Wings, another very, very highly regarded game. Now, this is in a... this was in a save state. There's a lot of preamble here to getting into the sky and fighting. Now, interestingly enough, this is working perfectly with my 360 controller this time. The first time I tried to map it, didn't work worth a damn. I kept trying and trying and trying, and it just would not respond. I reconnected the controller, I rebooted my machine, it didn't work. And that was even after I manually mapped it. But now that I've switched back to keyboard and come to this, it's working fine. So that's very interesting. But you know what? That's great, because this game actually plays pretty damn well with a 360 pad. The controls are responsive. I mean, this frame rate looks janky because this is how this game played, but the controls are responsive, there's no lag, it's shooting right when I hit the button, changes in direction are good, and I gotta admit, oh, bye sucker. I gotta admit, having a analog control with this, very, very nice. I mean, you were kind of working with analog control when you used the joystick on the Amiga, but this feels nice. This is a modern controller is a good way to play Wings, actually, so that's pretty cool. This is probably the game I was looking forward to most out of this collection. Defender of the Crown, sure, is pretty good, but Wings was really, really neat. And this was something, again, where Cinemaware did stuff really, really different because it was a flight game. So you get the idea there. And another black screenshot. And the things that will probably interest people least are the TV sports games. This was basically the equivalent of, EA Sports back in the day. So, again, I started in the middle of a fight here. This game was running. I don't know why the save states suddenly started working, because, as I said before, they weren't before. These games don't play or hold up very well. As you can see, the frame rates are really low. I mean, they're interesting nostalgia pieces to see what we had to deal with for sports games back in the day. But as you can see, this is not working super well. It is working with my 360 pad, and the cool thing is that even a session that I started with the keyboard, which is what I did with this, you can come back to later after changing your mapping to use the 360 pad, and it just picks right up. You don't have to start it over again. It will actually recognize that you have a controller plugged in and utilize it. I like that. That's good stuff. So, there we go. And as you can see, I mean, these graphics look absolutely, Stone Age by today's standards, but this stuff on the Amiga at the time was just, whoa! Like, this is how... These games are what you would do to show off to your friends and go, dude, this is why I have an Amiga and you've got a friggin' PC. Was stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a good collection of products, but the sports games are probably not going to interest people very much, and the package is a little janky, but it works serviceably. We've also got stuff here like SDI, which has a really, really harsh soundtrack. This is like a weird future game with Soviet Russia in it, where you have to defend missiles and stuff. And you have to manage things like that. It's a little weird. I never played this, actually, at the time. But it's kind of interesting. Figuring a lot of these out is going to be a challenge for some people, because there's no... I don't know if there's really any documentation included with these games, and there's none that I've seen. So you've got to sort of understand that. And then this game is kind of like Defender of the Crown, but in ancient Japan. which is cool. I like that. You know, neat stuff you can do with that idea. So Cinemaware made some really unique stuff, and you definitely get an idea of that when you play these. You can get an idea of their interesting design ideas. So that's the Amiga side. I'm going to show you the PC side. I guess it's cool that they included this, but believe me, you don't want this. So as you can see, we have a selection of their games over here, at least the ones that we know that made it to PC. All these do is run in DOSBox. When you launch them all, they launch in a window. And you can full screen the window, but I can't because for whatever reason, whenever I full screen a DOSBox window with this capture software, it goes black. So just trust me when I tell you you can full screen this stuff. But yeah, some of these games didn't have sound card support at the time. So for example, let's run King of Chicago here. So as you can see, there goes DOSBox. So it's in a window. Any old school DOS gamers remember this? Oh yes. PC speaker, buddy. Oh yeah. This is what old school PC gamers used to have for sound, either before the era of sound cards or when you couldn't afford, you know, $300 for an ad-lib or a sound blaster. That's what we had to work with. And as you can see here, the production values on this compared to the Amiga are just friggin' terrible. This game actually ran, I believe, in CGA, which is 4-color graphics, so it just looks like absolute crap. So pressing F12 exits out of the Amiga versions. It does not exit out of this version. In this, you just have to close the window. And as you can see down here, it'll flip back. Sometimes it flips back automatically. Sometimes you have to click that. Some of these games are better than others. Some of them, like SDI here, this is another one that was presented in CGA. It came from the desert, which is better presented. This was in EGA, I believe, which is 16-color graphics. And as you can see here, the way they've coded the setup in DOSBox is they're not accelerating the CPU or anything like that. So it's, in some cases, pretty sluggish. The load times on this actually feel a lot longer than in the Amiga versions. And once again, you're given no indication that anything's happening. So the games may very well appear to be stuck. So you just have to wait it out. And as you can see here, we have sound card support, but there's no voice in this intro. And the intro doesn't look as nice. Simply because at the time these came out, the Amiga was the more powerful system. It was the lead platform from these games. The PC were kind of the second cousin half-ass support version of this. That's just the way it was. So I don't really know why you'd ever want to play these versions, because even if you remember, even if you played the PC versions back in the day, why would you want to, like, if you have access to the Amiga versions now, why would you want to play the PC ones? Doesn't make any sense to me. But I mean, hey, they threw it in and they didn't have to, so it's more value in some way. As you can see here, like, this load time is just, God, it works though. Every one of these games work, so like they all run. I find sometimes DOSBox's sound emulation sometimes has issues if it's not configured very well, and I have noticed the problems with that in some cases as well. I've noticed. I don't know if you heard it there. I've heard a little bit of clicking sometimes from some of the DOS games. That is a common problem if DOSBox is not configured properly. Could be that. Could be my machine. Could be anything. Your mileage may vary on this for sure. The way this computer is configured, I generally don't have problems with DOSBox, but it doesn't play well with every hardware configuration. Hi, dude, you have a donkey and a bag. It does. Some DOSBox plays better with some computers than others. So your mileage may vary on that. You may have some problems, but again, the DOS versions are not why you're buying this, in my opinion. I've actually never looked at the TV sports stuff in the DOS, so let's see how that is. Other thing, of course, is that because the DOS versions are running in DOSBox, that save state stuff I discovered randomly while we were... Oh, I guess Mindscape put out one of these. The save state stuff that I discovered while doing this on the Amiga version, not available here. So DOSBox doesn't do save states that way, so you just keep that in mind. If you're playing the DOS version, make sure you save. You can't just quit out and have stuff work. Also, you may see a little thing there, like the little notification about the Steam thing is staying there. Yeah, that's kind of a pain. I'm not sure what happened here, but I think it's stuck on me. Yeah, the Steam overlay thing comes up and doesn't always clear, especially in full screen. It will often stay ghosted in the corner. That's really poor. I know DOSBox and the Steam overlay don't necessarily get along very well, but you know what? You're putting your game out on Steam. It's kind of your problem to figure that out. And that's pretty lame that doesn't work properly. So it disappeared there, but it doesn't with every game, and especially I've noticed when you go full screen, I can't demonstrate that to you, but if you go full screen, in some cases, it will stay there. Anything that comes up will sort of stay flashing in the corner and won't clear properly, which is really lame. So this is TV Sports Boxing, which was done in the later VGA era, so as you can see, the production values are definitely a little bit higher. So here we go. In addition to that, I don't believe that controller support works in any of the DOS games. I think that is only in the Amiga stuff. So yeah, this is... Ugh, yeah, this version, again, runs a lot worse. Let's bring it up here. Yeah, so I think, yeah, so you see here, player 1, cursor keys, player 2, and it's showing that here. So yeah, they did not bother. It is possible to get Xbox 360 pads working with DOSBox. They didn't put in the effort to do that. Also, yeah, this is a janky one. Defender of the Crown in DOS was 2 discs. So as you can see here, note when prompted for Reel 2, press any key and the game will start in approximately 20 seconds. So let's just show you that here. Defender of the Crown also... on DOS was pretty jank. You could actually pick between CGA and EGA mode there, as you saw. And I believe the Amiga version does this too, actually. It prompts for the second disc. Interactive movie. Remember when that was a term people actually found endearing and interesting? Oh, that shrill speaker, man. Oof. This is probably one of their better DOS ports, but that's not really saying something. And as you can see here, I don't know if it's loading or what, but again, I can't do anything here. I'm hitting keys, I'm clicking buttons. I think it's just going to make me sit through this. Oh my god, come on. Anyway. So yeah, the DOS versions, interesting that they're here, maybe interesting for comparison purposes of what the platforms were like at the time and why the Amiga was so awesome. I kind of think maybe that's why they put those in here, is to just show them, hey, look how amazing we were on the Amiga back in the day, because yeah, so yeah, there. Please insert Reel 2. And as you can see, it acts like it's not doing anything, but it says, please wait, the game will start in 20 seconds. So it's not accelerating loads whatsoever. They're actually running on a very low CPU speed, as you can see up here with DOSBox. It's 470 cycles, which is very low. So they're running on a DOSBox is emulating a processor of probably comparable speed at the time. There it is. And as you can see, this just looks friggin' rough compared to the Amiga version. So, yeah, DOS versions there. You don't care. You really shouldn't anyway. So, yeah, this is what we've got here. Like I said, if you have nostalgia for Cinemaware games, and I do to a certain degree, though not as much as others, you'll probably find something to like with this. This is a collection that was clearly put together with haste. And the stuff plays okay, but none of it has aged very well. These are games that even with pixel-perfect emulation do not necessarily play super well in this day and age. But they're there, and it's a fun romp, and you know, there's joystick support, there's gamepad support. It's not perfect, but it's there, which they could have gotten away without if they really wanted to. And save states on the Amiga versions, yeah, that's kind of nice. It would have been nice to see the load times improved. The wrapper could be a little better than it is, and the DOS versions are obviously bloody terrible. But yeah, it's not bad. This collection is normally $10 on Steam. Want my honest opinion? I think that's a little bit much unless you're a hardcore Cinemaware fan. I would probably wait for it to go on sale, which it absolutely will. There's a lot of games in here, but like I said, it's all pretty rough stuff, and $10 might be a lot to ask for that when you can get something like Midway Arcade Origins, which admittedly is a very different kinds of games, but a lot more and much better presented for $20 or any other number of Sega packages or other old school packages on Steam that are less expensive with more stuff that's better presented. But your mileage may vary on that. That's a value proposition you got to determine for yourself. So, I don't know. It's cool. I'm looking forward to screwing around with it a little bit, especially since I didn't have an Amiga of my own back in the day and didn't get to play a lot of these games then. But yeah, it's a bit much for what it is, and you've seen some of the jank here. So yeah, that is Cinemaware Anthology 1986 to 1991. It says published and developed by Cinemaware, so I presume it's actually there. There's all my black screenshots. It's on Steam right now for $10, and I think it might be in other places. You can also get some of these games like Defender of the Crown and whatnot individually on GOG, but that's like, I think, either $6 or $10 for one game as opposed to $10 for a whole whack of them here. So this is definitely the better value. But if you're a big Cinemaware nut, this will probably be good enough for you. If you're not and you're curious, it could be good, but I'd wait for it to get cheaper. My name's been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. It helps me out a great deal. And I'll see you next time. Take it easy, guys.